Yeah, yeah. Sports Dev. Mike, how far?
Adeo, what's gonna happen now?
My brother, I did, man. I did. So what's good, man? This
Mm,
this I was looking at the schedule for these games tomorrow, these EPL games. You know, I see them. I think Liverpool is playing Man City, right?
yep.
Yeah, man, that should be a good one.
Yeah, I often wonder how they determine and the matchups coming off this international breaks. I feel
Yeah,
like it's unfair sometimes to schedule these big games, right after the international break. But hey, you play who's on the schedule. Yeah, that's just what it
yeah.
is.
You pretty much do. Speaking about the international break, it was interesting. This round of AFCON qualifiers. I don't know if you followed it closely and you saw what happened. I think you know we were, as usual, we're usually the biggest surprise. We're the biggest surprise in terms of losses, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but did we or were there any losses that shocked?
Yes, there were other losses. In fact, I would say maybe perhaps they're the biggest because we make the most noise.
Yeah,
But when you look at certainly when you look at places on the table, I know Guinea-Bissau were about 81 places below the Super Eagles, and so losing the first leg match 1-0,
yeah.
that sucked for the Nigerians, honestly.
That was huge.
And it wasn't just the loss; it's kind of like a pattern that's been established under the new head coach they have, Jose Pacero. They just have looked listless. They haven't had any good performances, honestly, apart from the match against Sao Tome and Principe, which no one's even looking at that match and even considering it as something you want to
No,
resume as. Hey, here's an exhibit of how we play. It was pretty much a training session, 10-0
yeah,
final score. But hey, it is what it is. But when you look at it overall, that was a bad result for Nigeria. But they did go back and beat the Guinea-Bissauans um, 3 days later in Bissau, their capital city. And it was very hot over there. I'll say the first 25 minutes was a good performance, good showing. But even after that, it was just not really anything inspiring in terms of the performance. A lot of selfish play, a lot of disjointed play. Uh,
a lot of complaining when they felt like, oh, the ball wasn't passed to them. I saw
yeah,
a
but
lot of
that's a
that.
feature of Victor Osimhen that I think I want to even highlight eventually. You've seen that from him in Napoli over the years, and if you play the game, you know that can wear on your teammates.
Yeah,
But I would say in that match, there was quite that complaining was warranted because there were many occasions where I think a better placed player, him in particular, should have been receiving those passes or those crosses were overhit, and it's just baffling. But anyway, let's stick to the question you're asking. Any bigger surprises? I would say yes. Namibia versus Cameroon. Namibia and Cameroon played out a draw in Cameroon, and then went over to Namibia, and Cameroon lost. So yeah, I think the qualification is still not in peril because all they have to do in the next round of matches is get a draw. The next round of matches happen to be in September, actually. I think if they get a draw against Botswana in their next match, they will still qualify because the African Cup of Nations qualifying is a bit watered down, where two teams qualify from each of the groups. I believe that what? How many groups are there? I know it's up to Group L, so that's what
yeah.
12 groups. So, and a couple of those groups, there's only 3 teams in them. So if you look at like a group with, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, Kenya withdrew from the competition. So, they'll be facing some massive suspension. So in that group that involves Kenya is where Cameroon, Namibia, and Burundi. So I said Botswana, it's Burundi. So really, even with Cameroon's losses, they're still going to qualify more than likely because they're still 3 points ahead of Burundi in third place. Only 3 teams are in that group. And again, the shock result was Namibia beating Cameroon. They actually lead Group C as we speak. I think the other country that withdrew, I'm trying to remember, but let me see if I can pull it up. Oh, Zimbabwe. Yes, Zimbabwe also were either withdrew or disqualified. So that left the group involving Morocco, South Africa, and Liberia as the only teams. That group is already done. 2 teams have already qualified, Morocco and South Africa. So again, the qualification, the bit with the way we had this conversation maybe about a year and a half ago or so, maybe even 2 years ago. I think it might have been in the last Cup of Nations when we were talking about it. Which one was the last Cup of Nations? Not this one. Did we do something for 20? I don't think we did something for 2021 Cup of Nations.
Yeah, 2021.
And we were talking about the fact that was it 2021 or 2020? I can't remember which one, honestly, again, but we're talking about the fact that with 24 teams, the Cup of Nations is watered down now.
Oh, yeah.
You know, teams that I don't think are good enough are making it. But what that ensures also is all the big teams are going to qualify.
It's a bigger tournament now, though. I remember there was a time when the Cup of Nations just had 8 teams. You remember? That was a long time ago, though. But there was a time where it just had 8 teams, and after they played four teams in each group, and then they went straight to the semifinals.
I would argue the Cup of Nations was much bigger then than it is now in terms of prestige. Yeah. Because back then, it was, first of all, the qualifying. This is when we were kids. So maybe I'm looking at it from the lens of a child, magnifying these things. But I remember how tough qualifying was.
It was tough.
And for you to be, it was only, and actually only the best of the teams were making it to the tournament.
100%.
Is it a better tournament? Who knows? But all we know is like we the stars of those tournaments lived in memories. The stars from Morocco, from Algeria, like the Baloumis, the Rabat Majers, the Ebaduzakis from Morocco. Well, you talk about Ghana, Betty Pele, Nigeria with their own stars. The Ivory Coast would come in and upset the apple cart every once in a while. But those teams that were qualifying, you knew their players. Zambia with the Kalusha Bwayas and the Bwaya brothers, if they made it. Whoever else was coming in there, Tunisia. But now it's qualifying is no, and I think that's what we're saying. For example, Nigeria, knowing we lose to Guinea-Bissau. What difference? Even the coach even said it himself. What difference does it really make? We're gonna beat them, and we're gonna qualification.
Which in a way speaks to, I guess, just the impunity the coach thinks he has. Like, how do you lose to Guinea-Bissau and you even make a comment like that? You know what I mean? Like, okay, you lose to Guinea-Bissau. First of all, your team has you should play a B team. You should not even play, honestly, with the kind of tradition and history that Super Eagles have. You should not play your first team.
No.
And be able to beat that.
History is all we're talking about. The Super Eagles are not that good. So that's what we have to understand. And we had this conversation maybe about 2 sessions ago that I was present when you were saying, should Victor Osimhen show up and play against Guinea-Bissau? And yes, he should, because there's no guarantees. In fact, we really didn't score a goal from open play in 2 matches against them. So The only goal we scored was off a penalty kick. It was well deserved, quite frankly, and penalties count as goals too. But we could not create. We have one of the top marksmen in all of Europe, and we contrived to not even be able to not just score. We didn't even put the goalkeepers on pressure. He wasn't making saves after saves after saves, standing on his head like they'll say in hockey, to deny Nigeria their goals. It was just listless and lackluster. So, and that's what we've been seeing from Nigeria for the longest now. If you take away the Sao Tome and Principe match, which I think everyone should agree that we're going to take away, it's an outlier. Really, you go back to Gernot Raw's era where Nigeria doesn't score more than 1 goal a game or 2 goals a game. And the exception would be in the African Cup of Nations, where coincidentally we played who did we play? It wasn't Guinea-Bissau. We scored twice against Guinea-Bissau in the final match in the group stage, but we beat the other team that was in our group by 3-1. I forget that country right now, but it's another one of those countries that's a throwaway country in terms of African football. But other than that, Boma, we don't score more than a goal. Goal scoring is a problem for the Super Eagles. I think if you go back to the Benin match, we scored twice against them in the qualifying for the Cup of Nations for the last one, and then Sierra Leone, Liberia, we scored twice in this qualifying series, and then the 4 goals we scored against Sierra Leone that we still contrived to give up, the 4 goals in a 4-4 draw. Those are the only matches I think we scored more than a goal.
Yeah, and you have to ask yourself this, right? So, is it that these guys are lacking effort, focus, or maybe they're just not that good. It has to be one of the few things. I mean, you have to ask yourself this, right? People say, "Oh no, when we play a team that's not as good, we usually just don't give it all, and surprises happen. But when it really matters, we show up." I'm like, no, no. Good teams, it doesn't matter who they play. You're gonna see that quality at all times. So the question is, which brings to the heading of this whole conversation is that we're saying they're super. Can we do we even need to keep that name on?
Well, it's
Because
a big name, so,
it's a good name, but I mean, in action, when you really look at it, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think it takes a rocket science to know that Nigeria's national team has not been super for a while. It's not.
Yeah,
It's not today that I would say the last glimmer of. In fact, even the one era that we looked pretty decent seems like an outlier since the early 2000s.
correct.
When you go back to look at the results and the performances, they haven't really done anything super, except they won the African Cup of Nations in 2013. But in 2013, even no Nigerian was even given that team any chance to win. Famously, even the government was already booking flights for the players ahead of the quarterfinal matchup against the Ivory Coast. But Stephen Keshi found a way to blend, and almost rightfully so, because if you looked at that group performances of that team were not inspiring. Right, they contrived to draw with Zambia in their opening match 1-1. The Zambians were the defending champions at that time, so a decent team, but we shouldn't have been drawn with Zambia. Let's be honest. The second match, I think we played. Oh, that was the second match. First match against Burkina Faso, which we should have beaten. Good team. They had to play at the tournament in Jonathan Petroipa in that match. The second match was against Zambia. Again, we drew 1-1 with them. So it came. The last match of the group stage is against Ethiopia, and it was touch and go, whatever will qualify out of the group stages. We needed a victory against Ethiopia, and we struggled in that match until Victor Moses scored 2 penalty goals. So we scored only to qualify. So we didn't look good in the group stages. The Ivory Coast were clear favorites. They had their guys like Yaya Toure was in his glory. DJ Drogba was still there, but maybe fading slightly, but still Drogba. And the glory of stars. They went on to win the Cup of Nations the next tournament, and so they were favorites. But Keshi worked some magic, and a 3-game stretch of perhaps really one of the highlights of the Super Eagles in the last 20 years or so. That 3-game stretch where we beat the Ivory Coast 2-1, beautiful football, where we beat Mali 4-1, and perhaps I think I will rank that and the one against Cameroon in the World Cup qualifier as the 2 best performances of the Super Eagles in the last 20 years, quite frankly. That match against Mali, we just dominated the Malians from minute number 1, played outstanding football. The finals, okay, it wasn't beautiful football all the way, but we dominated the match. We were in control of that match. We clearly were the better team, and we beat them 1-0, if not for some profligate finishing by Ahmed Musa. The score should have been really 2 or 3-0.
Correct.
That name, Ahmed Musa, will come back. And then so that one isn't we. So again, we caught fire at the right time, but even after that, the team never captured that play anymore. Yeah, they qualified for the World Cup, but they just never looked as cohesive and as dangerous. Then the only other time you can stand up and say the Super Eagles looked really good was in the qualifying campaign for the 2018 World Cup. The match against Algeria, that 3-1 victory in Uyo against Algeria, standout match. But I think bettered by the game against Cameroon, our eternal rivals, so we're neighbors and rivals. So, of course, the added extra significance of beating them 4-0 in Uyo, the largest wallop we've given them in a minute, right? And then you juxtapose that with that 4-2 friendly win over Argentina right after qualification for the World Cup. But I think that was it. That's the peak. After that, Super Eagles and this era and that particular era have been in decline after that 4-2 victory over Argentina. Because we went to the World Cup, didn't show up. Iceland, we beat 2-0. Okay, good result. In the Cup of Nations, we're in Nigeria, by just mere showing up. We're in the quarterfinals already anyway. So good result to get the semifinals, but the football wasn't particularly awe-inspiring,
Yeah.
And since then, nothing. Since then, honestly, nothing.
No, we've been listen. That's the whole point. Like that name, we should just be called the Eagles. Let's be honest, because when you look at it, it's like they fail to perform and when the expectations are especially high, they fail to live up to those expectations, right? You look at everything that's happened leading up to the World Cup, the most recent World Cup, how we failed to qualify, how the whole management of the system just kind of bungled the whole system with different coaches and different just poor planning and firing this guy and hiring that guy and bringing the Guavon in and him looking good initially and then canning him right at the end and then bringing, just and then you fire that person, you bring Pesero in. Lord knows what Pesero has accomplished. He comes in, and since then, we haven't even won a single friendly. Right? You just look at it, and they struggle against Guinea-Bissau. This, all fairness, right, to them in the second game, we missed a lot of chances. Osimhen hit the post. But still,
he didn't score. Post is not the net.
He didn't score, right? So when
Osimhen hit the post, but did you see all the other shots that he scoffed at? And the thing that bothers me is these guys are playing in these top clubs, and of course, who I'm going to single out here is Samuel Chukwueze.
Yeah, he was terrible.
Is useless in the colors of the Super Eagles.
He was terrible.
When is the last time you remember a good performance from Chukwueze in the colors?
Yeah, he was trying to play street ball too much.
But not street ball. Like the ball goes to him, he can't even beat a man. He can't beat a man in whatever reason. The same over 2 legs. It was the same exact rubbish.
Yeah,
and then when he's open on that breakaway, he decides when Osimhen is by himself. This is exactly if you were designing a breakaway situation. If the coach
that was a perfect situation.
This is exactly what we want. Exactly who the ball should go to.
Yeah.
Any coach in the world, any team in the world will say, "This is the play you make. You forget creating your shot. You find the number 1 talisman, the marksman that we have by himself, one-on-one with the goalkeeper." But Osimhen is not to blame. Is not without blame either. Victor Osimhen, I think I texted you this at one point in the first match. In the first game, 5 or 6 times he was offsides. In the second match, this is an issue with Victor Osimhen.
Yeah, what's up with that though?
He does that in Napoli, and Spalletti has actually scolded him. I think these guys come here and they feel too big. They feel like they're big and they do whatever they want. It's indiscipline of the highest order when you're offsides on that many times. It's actually supreme indiscipline. It's not like, oh, no, it's indiscipline. So there's 2 parts of that usually. Either the guys that have the ball aren't releasing it fast enough, but you're a professional. You should be able to time your runs. This is something you practice. You mean to tell me that the coach, and it seems the coach doesn't have, I don't think, what I'm seeing is that the boys aren't really respecting the coach, because those kinds of plays are the ones that show me whether a coach has control of his team. When you have a winger who's so selfish, like Chukwueze is, and stays on the field for as long as he did, over 2 legs. Moses Simon also had some moments where he was supremely selfish in the box, where a simple pass to somebody in a better position would have sufficed, didn't give. Decision-making of the Super Eagles players is horrible. That Zaidu guy, we had so much hope for him, but he's a useless player. He's another one of those guys that's turning into like an Ahmed Musa type of guy.
A lot of pace, but no common sense on the ball. Yeah, a lot of pace. Sense. Yeah.
Or like there was one play where, the thing pained me. He actually dribbled the ball through a guy's leg. I didn't know he had that kind of skill in him. And they had to cut the ball back. And he looked up, and there were options of who to cut the ball back to. The guy coming that was wide open on the box, he could just cut it back to him, or some useless cross. He picked the useless option. And I think that was immediately when I sent that message, like, this Zaidu guy, he's useless. He doesn't defend. Zaidu does not defend at all. In fact, the first goal, we give the center backs, and when Guinea-Bissau scored against Nigeria, that goal they considered, the center backs were to blame. They were found out. The pairing of Calvin Bassi and Kelvin Akpoguma.
Yeah, it was a lob over the top, and the guy
exposed both of them for lack of pace, lack of awareness. But the truth of the matter is that play was actually analyzed from the genesis of the play. And you can see why they were where they were at, mainly because it starts with not pressing the man on the ball, laziness on the part of Ademola Lookman, who had a horrible game. And he's had 2 horrible home games for Nigeria now. So that's something that has to be said. I think they're playing him in the wrong position when he plays with Nigeria. And also Zaidu, just in no man's land. He's always bombing forward, eschews the responsibility of being a defender. Can't defend, quite frankly, honestly, and can't cross.
We'll get to some of these players as I do, and especially Ahmed Musa. But the thing is, when you look at it, it's like you said something though. You said Osimhen does it a lot with the offside when he plays for Nigeria, and it's a mentality thing. It's in discipline, right? That's what you just said, and
Yes.
that's important. That's important because you have to ask yourself these, fluctuating performances across the board, and just sometimes lackluster effort you see might be a function of just something as simple as indiscipline and coming back feeling like, hey, I'm a superstar. They're going to invite me anyway. So I'm just going to come back. I'm not going to give 100%. Or if I do, I'm not going to give the same quality of football I do with my club. And next game, they're still going to invite me. Who else are they going to play?
Right.
So maybe it's just something as simple as Nigeria having options for the kinds, and I know it's tough. But
no, it's not tough. The truth is we actually have options. They don't call them. We have options. They don't call them up. Like it's a travesty that Victor Boniface was not a part of this group. Victor Boniface that plays for Union Gilois, the leading scorer in Europa Conference League, guy that AC Milan and teams in Italy are fighting over to see if they can sign him.
And then you have Gift Orban as well.
Okay, I can understand Gift Orban a little bit. That one I would give them a little leeway just because he burst onto the scene right before. So okay, let's wait and see. But when you're inviting Ahmed Musa, that says it all right there.
Look, the point though, right?
I sit up here and I've been talking about Musa for how God knows how long, right? But now it's beyond. It's not a vendetta against him. The guy's not playing. He doesn't play in his club, but hardly ever plays. He doesn't offer anything. And we have players in those positions that we need. Imagine in the game against Guinea-Bissau in Abuja, we bring him in when we need to go. That's who we're bringing off the bench. We're bringing in a -1. Yeah, he's gonna run around and give some, but he's not in football shape, man. He's not at that level of shape. Another thing, the other guys we're inviting, guys that aren't playing in their clubs.
Yeah, that's sad.
And the other thing that's really annoying is we have a 23-man squad and we invite 4 midfielders, of which only one of them is active. Wow. In Alex Iwobi. That's the only guy that he's leaving every invitation with his head held high.
Yes.
He should be the Super Eagles captain.
He's the one
that puts in a shift. He controls. He may not have the best game every game, but I know one thing's for sure. Alex Iwobi has given 100% of what he has.
100%, yeah.
That's one thing I know for sure. His commitment is there. Even when it comes to who shows up first to camp, he's usually one of the first in camp. You understand? We have Al-Hassan Yusuf playing. We have who is this other guy? I had his name in my head. We have 2 other midfielders that we know we can bring in, and yet we invite Frank Onyeka, who's played a total of about 11 minutes for Brentford this whole
year. He hasn't played. I've watched a lot of Brentford games, and there were a lot of games where he's
been injured. Not like, okay, great, but he just hasn't played. He's not match fit, and he looked like it in the first half against Guinea-Bissau. Looked like a guy that's just not match fit.
Even in the second game, there was one time he lost the ball.
That's what I'm talking about.
In
the second,
and he had to be saved. I think Osimhen ended up picking up a yellow card to foul.
Not Osimhen, the central defender, Kenneth Amaro. He had a pretty decent game, but he himself, he's not even playing that much for his second division club. Yeah. So it's like, are you kidding me? We invited under 20 players. We didn't pick the best under 20 players from that under 20 squad. Rather, we invited guys that some people say are not even 10th best on the under 20 team. Right. The goalkeeper, okay, whatever. The goalkeeper is a throwaway position. The third goalkeeper is just exposure. Okay, I'm all for that. I have no problem with that. But the right back was a position. The backup right back is a position we need to cover for because Olaina was suspended for this round of games. I actually didn't even know that because the NFF doesn't relieve information. So why is Olaina not invited? Nobody knew until after the match. We heard that he was suspended because he picked up yellow cards. We invited Bamei. the young kid from Yum Yum FC. Not even in the national in the. So you telling me there's no right backs in the professional Premier League of Nigerian professional
That's
football?
my point, dude. It's like they don't try to create these options. Like if you look at the top coaches out there, the one thing they'll do, especially if they have a lot of talented players around and they have options for talent, they'll create a situation where they know, okay, listen, I have my guys, but I also have guys that I know I could pick on to come into play. And then the guys that do show up for them, they set a standard for performance. Because at this point, because the coaches don't spend that much time with the players on the national team, there has to be a standard for performance. And you see it with the good teams. You see it. The top teams around the world, you see that standard for performance. And that's why I was like, you look at us and it's like,
Let's talk about the good teams. Now I'm just going to run down the groups. Having said all that, we're leading our group, but that's nothing to write on. Our group contains Guinea-Bissau, Sierra Leone, and Sao Tome and Principe. Look, we should be sleep. We should give them the first half, give them goal, and we should still be top in the group.
That's my point, though. Plateau United should.
I don't give them any credit for that. The fact that they dropped points means that they're not good enough. Now you look at the other big team. Okay, so Burkina Faso is leading the next group. We're actually in Group A. So Burkina Faso is up, 3 wins, 1 draw. Okay, Cape Verde is the second team. Those are the teams you would expect to go from containing Eswatini and Togo. Togo is disappointing. In Cameroon's group, we already talked about it. Namibia is in first place, and Cameroon is in second place. Then in the next group, Egypt, Guinea, Malawi, and Ethiopia. So Egypt and Guinea. Egypt lost a match to Ethiopia in the very first match of the qualifiers. That was a shock defeat for them. Yeah. But they've recovered and won 3 straight. Ghana is actually struggling a bit. No, I wouldn't say struggling, but they haven't lost. But they drew with Angola in one of their matches, and then they beat them the next time, I think. Or did they draw twice? But they're in first place. Central African Republic is second, Angola. So those 3 teams are fighting for the spot. And Madagascar, despite their one nice little run, seems like they've come back to reality. They're in last place in that group. Now, Algeria.
They've qualified already.
They're already qualified, and they haven't even lost any matches. They haven't dropped points. So they've qualified with ease. Mali and Congo and Gambia and South Sudan are in a group. That's actually the most competitive group in all of this qualifying series, because Mali is in first place with 9 points, Congo with 6. Gambia also has 6, and South Sudan have 3. And the Ivory Coast is in a group, even though they've already qualified. I watched one of their games, man. For me, it's not even about the players. Just looking at the field, the Ivorians' field just made me weep. So we'll come back to that one. They're leading that group, so Zambia is in second place, and they're going to qualify. So basically, the form teams are qualifying like you would expect. The one group where things are a little bit weird is in the group with Gabon, Sudan, Mauritania, and Congo DR. Congo DR is in last place in that group. So Gabon is in first place on 7 points, Sudan on 6, Mauritania on 5. So basically, it's all up for grab. Even Congo is still there are 4 points. So first through last are within 3 points. So that's good to see. Tunisia, 10 points. Equatorial Guinea is behind them with 9. Those 2 teams are going to qualify. And Morocco, they're playing in South Africa's group. Of course, they only have 3 teams, but Senegal, defending champions. They dropped 0 points dropped. 4 for 4. Mozambique is in Rwanda. So, again, the other part of it is just AFCON qualification is really, these are warm-up matches. That's what they're glorified friendly matches for the top teams. That's just the truth of the matter. Glorified, they're just slightly above friendly matches because they're mere formalities. The top teams are going to qualify. But the top teams do it in style. Senegal, stylishly. Morocco, stylishly. Algeria, stylishly.
It takes the pressure off. So now Senegal, I don't know how many more games they have, but guess what? They've qualified. You think they're going to play Mane in some pointless games?
They'll play him because they need continuity now. But see, so I think
they're not under pressure to do it, right?
Right, but I think they don't have to win games. Is blending. See, in the national football is about blending. You don't have enough time, so as much blending as you can get without pressure, that's great. So now they can work on tactics. They can work on things. we don't have we're not afforded that opportunity to work on things because now we have to go win. You know, that winning is number one. So if it means we're pumping long balls into Paul, no,
You know what I'm saying? When you get yourself into a tough position,
oh no, true. They're not even playing for Southampton. We invited him to, and then the coach brings him in with us and pairs him with Osimhen for a whole half. Two guys that are similar in terms of profile, and
you know that's my point though. Like Pizarro, honestly, I'm gonna say this, bro. I said this to you when it happened. I'll say this again. They need, and I don't even know if they can afford to let that guy go.
They can't.
But they can't. But that guy is a nightmare, man. I swear to you. I promise you. These guys are fat cats. He comes in. He has an array of talent. Let's not kid ourselves. But he can't motivate them to perform at a certain level and get them to be what they are. That's all you need at this stage. You don't need to be, because you know how much time you're not spending time with them. You spend zero time with them.
Yeah.
So, but you have to be able to get the best out of him. He's not the guy.
Two things are becoming very clear about the Pizarro era.
Yeah.
You know, it was unfortunate for him that he came in on the back of us not making the World Cup. So that immediately we're in a low ebb of our cycle, that's for sure. But the other part is that he doesn't know our players. He doesn't know our players. He doesn't know our players, he doesn't understand their blending and who complements who. And I'll point out a few of those things. The first one is playing Ademola Lookman on the left side. You know, in as much as if you look, just look at Ademola Lookman. That's not where he excels. He excels as a support striker. He's actually a good right winger, right? That's one. Two, and I think in the first match, again, look, a coach makes a decision, but I think Moses Simon should have started that match. In as much as we don't, Moses Simon, I don't understand how he can't cross the ball for the love of God when he plays for the Super Eagles. When he's playing for Nantes, he delivers.
Oh, everything is perfect, yeah.
But again, it might just be that everything is perfect. The fields are perfect. I just don't. Moses Simon is a completely different player when he plays with the Super Eagles than compared to the one that runs out in the Canary Yellow of Nantes. The only times that I've seen Moses Simon look anything close to that type of player is in the AFCON in the group stage in 2020, in the 2021 AFCON, which happened in 2022, I suppose, and early on in the World Cup qualification series for the 2018 World Cup. Outside of that, Moses Simon has been just relatively terrible for the Super Eagles. Maybe in the AFCON in 2021 and 2019. Yeah. He was actually playing more as a defensive winger. And that's where he's saying Raw loved him because of his commitment. So you always put him. But I think he understands African football a little better than Ademola Lookman. And playing Lookman on that position on the left was not really taking advantage of somebody who is good. But the other thing too is Lookman has been out of form since the end of January, basically. All right. So he's brought that bad form into the Super Eagles. That's one. Two, sticking to this 4-4-2 formation. Okay, you want to stick to 4-4-2 formation, but you can't play inverted wingers if you play 4-4-2 formation. You got to play wingers that are strong on the wing. So that means Chukwueze, if you want to show him to the left, that's where he needs to be, and bring Ademola Lookman on the right, or play 4-3-3. Yeah. And with 4-4-2, he started with Kelechi Iheanacho as the midfielder, the support striker. Nobody even understood what Iheanacho's role. Iheanacho certainly didn't understand his role. Came in the first 45 minutes, did absolutely nothing. Made one nice pass, but that was about it. Took him off after 45 minutes, and then brings in Paul Onuachu. I'm thinking, if you're going to bring in a support striker, you bring in the guy that's playing, the guy that's scoring goals in France, in Terran Murphy. But he brings in Paul. Why is he bringing in Paul? The rationale, we're down by one goal, let's lump in crosses. Your wingers can't cross. They can't. They can't cross. So it baffles me. And then you look at the midfield. This thing is sad what has happened to Wilfred Ndidi. The precipitous fall that guy has had.
Yeah, after his injury, he just hasn't been the same. Even in his club games, when you watch him, he's not the same player.
He doesn't start anymore. And Didi now comes off the bench.
Yeah.
He starts once every 3 or 4 games. He'll start because maybe they want to rotate the squad or
He
whatnot.
needs to. You could tell it's a mentality thing. Like he needs to get his mentality back. Whatever that was that he lost, he needs to get it back because that's what it is.
He's lost confidence. I don't know if you saw the first match. He was presented with the best chance against Guinea-Bissau. He should have been putting that. He was alone. In fact, I think he was surprised at how alone he was. The goalkeeper too was surprised. Everybody was surprised how alone he was. But for me, I don't know if you shoot, the goalkeeper makes a good save.
Okay, we'll take that. Yeah.
But the effort was so tepid and so tame, and it just encompassed the lack of confidence, that he has. His passing is horrible, just continuously. And Didi has gotten worse, not better, unfortunately. And I don't know what's going to happen with him.
I agree. It's very frustrating to watch because he's been hands down my favorite player on that squad, just because of his leadership ability, everything he was doing up until his injury. Yeah. Right? Because when that injury happened, that's when you actually started to see, and then he came back. I don't know whether he's fully
early.
Yeah. Plus, sometimes you don't know with these guys. He may not even be fully healthy yet. That's another thing. Maybe that's why they try to bring him off the bench, because he's like still injured slightly, but he wants to play through it because he understands how it's affecting his stock and all these things, man. Right. So you will never know, man, but he's definitely not the same guy. Ajala, on the other hand, Moses Simon, he just he's a hell of a player, man. I tell you. But if he could just improve that one little place of crossing the ball. But you know what? A lot of times he takes corner kicks. Right?
But you notice the corner kick routines we've been taking. We don't just pump him into the box anymore. Now the new routine is to
take a short
and then with the intent to cross it, it never comes off. It hardly ever comes off. Maybe once or twice we'll actually pull off a situation where we have a guy that has a chance to head the ball. So I think we had one chance in both games where it was a header. I think Omero had one and Jai had another one. It never gets to us.
Hey, I think you're frozen. You froze on me, hey. Mike.
Okay. Just a little
you froze.
I can hear it the whole time.
Oh, okay.
But anyways, look, as we're talking about all these guys, I'm gonna come back. We're gonna go back to talking, giving scathing criticism, but I want to actually highlight a guy that stood out in both legs, and that's Bright Osai Samuel. He was a live.
Where does he play?
He plays in Fenerbahce in Turkey, so he's not going to be playing there for long. That one's for sure.
Really?
I think he used to play for Queens Park Rangers in the championship in England before he made that move to Turkey. Baller, and he's played 3 matches for the Super Eagles now, and every single time he's been a standout player. In fact, he's the only one that did anything creatively that he won the penalty.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was the one that made that run on the right side that they brought down.
I think moving forward, what we need to start looking at is Ola Aina at left back or Calvin Bassey at left back, one of those two, and Bright Osai Samuel. He's locked up that right back position. Aina obviously has something to say about has a shout, but I think it should be the trio. Well, we have 4 backs now, 4 outside backs. And to me, Zaidu should be the last one on the totem pole because he doesn't defend. And quite frankly, when he's not on his game offensively, then he offers nothing to the team. Aina can play both sides, so he's a versatile player. So that's something you always want. Calvin Bassey also is lacking in confidence. You could tell he's just not the same guy that was in that finals between Eintracht Frankfurt and Rangers last year in the Europa League finals, where he was just massive. and everyone was thinking, "Oh, this guy, he lacks pace," which is I was kind of surprised by that a little bit. He doesn't have that natural pace, so he can get beat a bit, which makes him kind of an oddity because that means he's not really an ideal left back, because he's not that fast. But you would think that should be able to have him be a center back. But again, maybe it takes time for young center backs to actually kind of develop. But in Ajax, the problem right now is that they keep moving him back and forth, and they're playing him in different systems. The back three, where he's the one covering on the left side of the back three, which means he has a lot of room to try to cover, which opens up space. And he's often blamed a lot for a lot of the goals that Ajax concedes. So he's having a rough go of it, but hopefully it works out. But yeah, center backs, a little bit weak. Akpoguma, I thought he was going to be better, but I see that he doesn't have pace either. Semi Ajayi, he's okay. Plays in the championship. Played one season in the Premier League.
And speaking about that, our defense, man, like, is it that we don't have prospects out there to bring in, or these are just the absolute best we could find? Because we don't have a lot of options. Kenneth Omero is still playing on Nigeria's defense. And think about that for a second.
None of our defenders, none of our center backs, apart from Kelvin Akpoguma. Well, I guess you can say Calvin Bassey too, but I really can. Well, I guess you could say he's a center back. A lot of them playing in the second tier.
Yeah.
Omero, if you want to count Balogun, even what's his name, William Truce Ekong. Well, he's now playing in Italy, but before then he was playing for Watford in the second tier. So our defenders in the second tier. I think the issue here is double-fold. Number one, in Nigeria now, nobody wants to play defense. And you're picking teams, everyone's trying to play up top, so we don't develop defenders naturally. I don't think defending is not a natural thing that Nigerians want to develop. And then and something about the body type of Nigerian players since the late 2000s or mid to late 2000s, our profile of body type is more skinny instead of do you remember look at Uche Okechukwu?
Solid.
Stephen Keshi. You see him that build of, okay, before you think about running around this player, you think twice. Because it's I'm coming up against these guys. Even our backs, even Benny Roja, that body type. Look at JJ Okocha. Just look at his legs. Our players are not built I don't know, maybe it's because of today's game, the way it is now. It's more about athleticism and running. So our guys, but look at Kalidou Koulibaly. Once you place Kalidou Koulibaly there, that's where he's posted. You can come run. He's not moving from that spot.
But that's my point, though. It's like that position, right? It's a combination of strength. The skill has to be okay. It doesn't have to be the best, but you have to have the smarts to know what's going on when you're back there. You see what I'm saying? When you're playing with three other guys back there, you have to know exactly what's going on. You have to know exactly what's going on with offsides, how to set them up. You have to know how to read plays. You just can't be back there.
We haven't produced anybody for almost 20 years that can do any of those. Think about it. The best we've produced out from inside Nigeria in the last 20, maybe say 15 years, I want to even say, is Joseph Yobo and Kenneth Omero.
Yeah.
That's the truth of the matter. Yeah. All our other center backs have come from overseas. Balogun, William Truce Ekong. And they both were not that good.
No, they weren't.
Everybody loved Balogun and they hype him up, but Balogun was never really that good. He was all right, but he was slow, lack of pace, prone to make errors on the ball, just like Truce Ekong is a disaster of a defender, quite frankly. Yeah, it's a disaster of a defender. Never got better. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah.
But those are the best we had. And when you look at it, we don't produce anybody. And you look at, I guess on the 20 team had a couple of guys that looked like they might be kind of decent, but you never know. The problem is, inside of Nigeria, we talked about this already. We're not developing fundamental players. And by the time they go to Europe, they're already too old. They're stuck in their bad habits ways. The thing that really Kenneth Romero is a perfect example. It used to kill me. The guy just lacked awareness of where he was at in the field. He was around him, was behind him. He used to make just calamitous errors. And one thing used to really annoy me about like Nigerian defending is the ball will come in the box and the guy will like try to be acrobatic and clear the ball acrobatically by diving in there, whereas a simple just hit the ball to the sideline. It's just anywhere but left face type clearances.
You remember in the 2018 World Cup, the goal that Messi scored.
Mm-hmm. I knew you were gonna say that Messi. That's all that's in my head.
But when you were Romero.
Messi does that to a lot of defenders. So I'm not gonna blame Romero.
But that play, every time I hear Romero's name, that play just keeps.
But that goal is similar to the goal that Guinea-Bissau scored, where a guy from the half of the field, right?
Yeah,
either a defensive midfielder or a central defender looks up, has time to like kick the ball over. We do a lot of fundamental.
That should have never happened. Exactly. Given the experience those guys have, that's the last play.
Switching off.
Yeah, they went to sleep. They went to
discipline. Sleep. I mean, both goals we gave up are switch off goals. Discipline. You get 90 minutes plus. You have to be on. The great teams are switched on all the time.
In Abuja, by the way, that was at home. They beat us at home. That's saying
kind
something.
Of goal we gave up against Central African Republic when we lost. Well, over the top, defenders collided with each other because I don't know what. Truce Ekong and Balogun. Oh, that was calamitous. They collide with each other in center, and that pretty much is the end of Gannett Raw at that point.
Yeah, and bro, that's the reason why, I'm frustrated. And I'm saying maybe should we drop the Super, because when they were called Green Eagles, I remember because I was a kid. If you're coming to play us at the National Stadium in Surulere, Lagos, you better bring. Not just your A game, your juju, whatever it is you want to bring to come win that game, because I can guarantee you were in for a hell of a war. Like, those guys didn't lie down. They were called Green Eagles. They played with pride. They competed. They gave everything they had, and that tradition that they had led up to what we saw in '94. The tradition that had been built, even though they didn't qualify for the World Cup. Right, and you have to remember too, Africa had 2 spots, right? But that tradition that they had built up a strong foundation for the respect that this team had. So when the likes of the '94 came in, they had watched those guys. They had watched the Henry Wosus, the Humphrey Adebos. They had watched those guys over the years, and they were like, okay, this is how we need to compete. So they came in.
Some of those guys, Rashidi Akini used to play with that. Even Keshi played with that group.
Yeah. They played with that. They played with those groups. Keshi was the one that went to Belgium, and then because he went abroad, he started bringing all these guys with him, and that's how the whole going abroad thing came about.
Just going down memory lane a little bit, right? So, I mean, what's in the name? The Green Eagles. When did they become Super Eagles? It was right after the 1988 African Cup of Nations. After that semifinal victory, they finished second in that Cup of Nations, lost to Cameroon on a dubious penalty, denied a clear goal by Henry Nwosu and a clinical header. That was a goal, and the referee disallowed it. For even to this day, nobody even knows what the reason was. They didn't tell us. They just said another goal. And then people blame CAF politics with Issa Hayatou being, Cameroonian himself as one of the reasons why things went down like they did. But be that as it may, the name Super Eagles was coined by the then vice president of Nigeria, Admiral, I think it was like Kombe was his name. And when they came back from that tournament, in fact, the highlight of that tournament was a semifinal matchup against against Algeria. That was Maroc 88. In a game where it was 1-1. And Nigeria I think they had a man sent off. I can't remember who was it, Yusuf Oluwe. But Brighton Marker got sent off, and Yusuf Oluwe was asked by the coach to reduce Algerians to 10 men too. And he went in with a
yeah.
That's why his nickname is 10-10. to this day. Anyway, but not something you should be proud of. But he did that, and that game went to penalty kicks. And at the time, if I'm not mistaken, it might have been the very first. I don't want to say something that's not true. It might have been the first penalty shootout in AFCON history, or at the very least, the longest penalty kick shootout at the time in AFCON history, which Nigeria ended up winning. I think it was like something like 10-9 or something like that. And Peter Rufai scored his penalty kick. And I remember then Dreed Nasruddin was the goalkeeper for Algeria back in those days. Used to be one of my favorite players. But you remember the Algerian team? Now we lack that Baloumi.
Yeah. Rabah Maja was a savage, man.
Yeah, I don't think Majer played in that Cup of Nations, but that particular team in '86 had been to the World Cup. It represented themselves very well. They'd been to the World Cup in '82, so they had been to back-to-back World Cups for Africa. So the solid group of teams. And in fact, 2 years later, they were African champions. So, that was a big. So anyways, I come up with named them Super Eagles. From that point, it became known as the Super Eagles. And they certainly lived up to that moniker because it was right after that Cup of Nations. They were still in the midst of the World Cup qualifying and for the 1990 World Cup, which unfortunately were unsuccessful in qualifying because Cameroon pipped them. Yeah. Because, in fact, it was the first match that either the first match where they hired Clemens Westerhoff right after 89 or something like that, because he started that team in 89 and started building the team from that point. But that's a different era, It's a nickname. You're right about one thing: commitment. The commitment was there.
But you see, the nickname came from, like you said, commitment and a tradition. Like look at the names you just mentioned: Bright Omokaro, Issa Sofoluwa. Those guys played in Nigeria. Bright Omokaro, I think he played for Insurance Benin or New Nigerian Bank, one of the two. I can't remember. It was one of those two teams. Yeah, because New Nigerian Bank used to be the team in our household. That was the team. Yeah, NMB. That was our team. So,
I'm a Rangers man.
Yeah. So it was that. I know my
Rangers Bees or Kaduna too.
Yeah. So my uncles were Sharks of Port Harcourt fans. When Sharks were Sharks. Finidi played for Sharks of Port Harcourt.
Yeah, George Finidi now.
You know what I mean? So you see what I'm saying? Like
Calabar Rovers.
Yeah, Etimessin played for Calabar Rovers. He got signed in Belgium by a top team from Calabar Rovers. Finidi got signed to Ajax from Sharks of Port Harcourt. Look, there's something to be said. The reason why we are like this is because of the abysmal failure of our entire club scene to put out players the caliber that you would want to watch and you would go for.
Not just the club scene, Boma, but I definitely agree with you 100%. But the other part of it too is look at our youth teams. So when you look at those teams that we talked about back then, the 88 iterations for Cup of Nations, even the 84 iteration, because we missed 86, which is the only Cup of Nations we had missed for that period from 76 all the way down until we didn't go because of Sani Abacha in 96 and 98. And qualification-wise, the first one we missed was 2012.
Yeah.
Right? Now, all those teams, all those players on those Super Eagles teams or Green Eagles teams, at some point, at least 30 to 40, maybe if not even 50% of them were represented either the under 20 teams, mainly under 20 teams at some point, whether they played for sure or were part of the squad. So there's continuity in those teams. And again, something to be said when the guys are all playing in the local domestic scene, as opposed to now scouring for guys from all over the world. One thing you can say about Super Eagles, they don't look like a team when they play. But now you look at our youth teams. Our youth teams are useless. On the 20 team, kudos to them qualifying for the World Cup, which, by the way, was supposed to be in Indonesia. But the Indonesians got stripped of hosting rights for the World Cup I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, because
way
using entry for Israel to come into the country. So FIFA said, all right, to heck with that. So word is Qatar is probably going to pivot and host.
No way, bro. Yeah. And I was looking at that World Cup like, damn, it would be nice to go to Indonesia. Of course, it's one of those countries you want to visit, right?
Yeah.
So you're joking. So they stripped it?
They has lost the right to host it. So now they're going to announce who's going to probably Qatar, which makes sense because they're already got stadiums ready to go. Now, that under 20 team, useless, abysmal, just nothing but pure brute strength and physicality. Football sends -1. The forwards all playing for each other. Like, you'll see a guy in the middle of the park will receive the ball. You'll see an overlapping runner on the right by himself. You look at him, you see the white in his eyes, you see his jersey. Release the ball to him, IB. No, let me take it inside and try to beat 2 or 3, 4 players, and I will lose it after. I might beat 1. Shoot, I might even beat 2. But ultimately, I'm running into the third guy and I'm losing the ball. Now my fullback's out of position.
Yeah, but let me ask you a question. Do you think these guys are playing for Nigeria or for themselves? Let's be honest about that.
Even if you're playing for yourself, that's still not the football play to make. Let's play for yourself.
I get it.
Let's like, or when they're one-on-one on goal and the way they shoot. Like,
so I see what you're saying. The fundamentals are just poor.
Just missing, just no football brain whatsoever. Then the other part of it too is like you look at the coach selection that in that particular under 20.
Yeah,
I don't want to cast any aspersions, but we saw the guys that were starting. I'm gonna leave it at that. And then after we finally had lost in the semifinals, which is very predictable that we're going to lose in the semifinals to teams that are more organized and come to play. Into the third place match. Now, where you now rotate the squad. We bring in a guy named Jude Samuel. And I'm like, you mean to tell me this guy was on the bench? You had him on the bench and you didn't play him all tournament. Came in and just ran the Tunisian defense ragged. Best in one match. I know who the best player on that team is. Scored 2 goals. Probably should have scored. Like, I wasn't even paying attention. I was watching the match, but working. I was like, this guy.
Hold up. You always get all these matches. What were you watching it?
I have this app called Fubo TV. Fubo TV has beIN.
Okay, I have Fubo TV.
beIN Sports has the rights to all AFCON and their qualifications. So now when it comes to qualifying matches, it's not guaranteed that Nigeria will be on, but it's guaranteed that if the 2 matches are being played in that window, Nigeria will be on. One of them will be a Nigeria match.
Yeah, but I didn't know that they had the U20s as well. Yeah,
they have the under 20s, so they probably will have the under 17s. They have the women's competition. So actually, speaking of which, I might go to Australia for that. I'm looking for a tournament to go, so maybe I'll be able to
for the women.
Yeah, for the women's World Cup. But let me continue.
You're going to Australia for the women
World Cup. Yeah, support us, Falcons, rather.
No, I know, man. Falcons. I know.
Now, the next one is so on the 17 has Nduka Agbade. Everyone is saying that looks like they're competent. They won their.
I've heard a lot of good things about that team.
So we'll see what they do because the AFCON is coming up. But let me just finish what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah.
Under 23, we had a doubleheader against Guinea for qualification for AFCON. Under 23 AFCON, which is the ticket to the Olympics. Right?
Yeah.
That whole thing was just mired in controversy. So to start with, they camped maybe like 30 days before camp. Comes out that, half the team is over age. They have to send the players back. So now it comes time to invite players. They last minute, they're like, we're inviting 16 foreign base under 23 players. So now because we didn't invite Gift Orban to the Super Eagles, the coach sends an invitation to Gift Orban, which his club declines. Because as in the true spirit of Nigerian way, we send the invitation late. So the club is like, no, we're not going to honor that, that invitation, that call up. We don't care. We're not sending them. So we lost that chance. Now, first leg was in, actually they played around the Super Eagles. So they played in Abuja too. The first leg was on Wednesday. Last when Nigeria played on Friday in Abuja.
Who they play?
Guinea, 0-0. We should have lost that match from all accounts and purposes. Of course, they talk tough. We're still in it. We'll go and give our best effort. But everybody will tell you the game was disjointed. There was no cohesion, nothing whatsoever. They go to Guinea on Tuesday, get smacked 2-0. So they're out. Guess who the coach was? You know who it is now.
Who?
Salisu Yusuf. Salisu Yusuf that failed to qualify the Chan Eagles for the
Here's the one thing that's consistent about Salisu Yusuf. He's constantly rewarded for failure and corruption, by the way.
interruption.
Consistently, like the guy does all the wrong things, and they keep him there or promote him.
So, of course, Nigerians are irate. Look, qualification is nobody's birthright. So I don't say that we should always qualify, and just because of qualify, that means the world comes to an end. But this will be the second straight Olympics that will not be in, considering the country
and we got knocked out by Guinea. We got knocked out by Guinea.
Okay, no wala. Guinea, okay, well deserved. They played better than us over 2 legs. By no means am I going to even cast any aspersions to them. However, there is talk that the Guineans fielded a player that is ineligible, and Nigerians are pointing that out. It seems like the NFF hasn't even picked up on that and lodged a complaint yet. But that's an aside. Here's the part that's so annoying. Of course, Nigerians will come out with their swords unsheathed. Nigerians are angry right now for many reasons going on inside that country, of which politics is part of it.
Yeah, I know. I've heard.
So they're calling for Salisu Yusuf. And so the question was put forth before one of the board members of the NFF. What are we going to do with this coach, Salisu Yusuf, that has failed Chan Eagles, failed on the and this is a third documented failure that I know of. Could be more that I don't even know of. Basically, and it's not just a failure, it's the way the team just doesn't work. What ideas are you implementing that we see? None of them. The administrator deflected the question, and we have technical directors who review how coaches are hired. Okay, no wala. You didn't say much. But the part that is super annoying, Salisu Yusuf, I don't know if this is he actually said this, but it's a quote attributable to him, where he says, "I'm born a coach, and that's what I will keep doing, coaching. I have a contract with the NFF, and I will continue to honor that contract." Bam. So, oh boy, you just let a whole bunch of Nigerians down. The last thing you should be doing is standing your ground and being
puffing his chest. Yeah, puffing his chest out. Look at me. I have a job, and I'm keeping my job.
Do you know why he can do that? When you get caught collecting bribe, and yet
you still have a job.
And you're the assistant. Oh, he even added, I'm the assistant coach of the Super Eagles.
There you go. Yeah, listen, the Salisu Yusuf thing, it just boils my blood. You don't even understand. Like, I sit down and I'm just like, look, if you ever needed a reason to understand why the teams don't do well and this federation struggles, that's exhibit number 1 right there. Right there. There is no other federation on this planet where this guy, it was some other federation for drive and come out from don't even come to this building anymore. Go.
Yeah.
You'd have been flogged.
No,
I mean, it's just.
I don't want him flogged. I want him to be able to earn a living.
No, I don't want. Yeah, I don't want him flogged. Okay,
no
maybe I do, just a little bit, just a little flogging, maybe 6 strokes. But I'm just saying, like, it's ridiculous. And then you put him.
Because he's an assistant Eagles coach. Between through and you can Eagles coach, it means you're like really you're next in line. So when you don't have those assignments, then you're with the Super Eagles, and if something would have happened to Pesero, then you're the one that's taking over the team. He's the one that brought the team to wasn't it him that brought the team, or was that Guavon? I forget, to United States.
Yes,
when we played Mexico friendly.
It was surprising if it was him. Yeah. Look, they have friends in executive positions, and he feels like, look, he's secure, he's not going anywhere. Plus, there's also the tokenism you have to think about in Nigeria. If you
not tokenism,
let me explain to you, like, federal character. Okay, so, and I'll say this because here's the thing: if Salisu Yusuf wasn't there, there'll be no Northern coach.
No, that's not true. The under-20 coach is from the North.
Who?
Ismaila Mabo, or whatever his name is.
I mean, with Super Eagles on that level. Keep in mind, you have to realize how long Salisu Yusuf has been involved as an assistant coach.
Look, I don't want to. My whole point is, if you're good enough, if you're good enough,
and that's the point I'm trying to make, though, right? This is based on credentials, it's based on knowledge, it's based on the ability to come in the coach. Finidi, you can't argue. He has.
Oh, by the way, Finidi wasn't.
Amunike, you can't argue, right?
Finidi wasn't part of the group that coached this last round of games. Him and Ike Shoromu. The word around is that Peseiro fired them. And then NFF came back and disputed, they weren't fired. It's just that they told they only have a certain number of coaches they can carry at a given time. So they rotate the coaches. Last time it was Finidi and Shoromu's turn. And if every story, there's always a story. And then the NFF comes back and rebuts the story. So it's never straightforward. The latest one that's out right now is Victor Boniface's invitation. Because people are saying, why on earth would we have a guy that scored 19 goals and has 8 assists in Europe and wasn't invited? It's not like this was Gift Orban that burst onto the scene last minute. We can understand that. So the rumor going around is that they invited him. Then they told him, buy your tickets, we'll refund you. And he said, I'm going to give you guys a middle finger.
Piss off, thank you.
And of course, the NFL has come out and deny that. So, but that's a trap. Oh, so you denied that he invited? They said he wasn't invited. And we're like, okay, why wasn't he invited? Because you're telling me that Ahmed Musa is better than this guy. That's it. It's something because we basically it comes down to that.
That's the point, though. That's the point I'm making. Is like they do these things that is not based on any form of merit at all. The Finidi thing, there were reports when Peseiro first came in. He didn't like him or Ike. Like he didn't want them around. They even complained that he was having meetings without them.
Yeah, I remember that.
You know what I mean? Like, so this isn't day one. You gotta realize Finidi's not the kind of guy that just kind of rolled out of bed in Nigeria and came into coaching. He's played at a high level for top clubs. He went through the process in Europe, got his UEFA coaching badges. Right, has coached for some major clubs as an assistant in Europe. He has a credible CV. So he sees, So maybe Peseiro came in and is like, hey, look, this guy's not going to put up with, this guy knows his stuff, and that's the difference. And the frustrating thing for someone like Finidi is this is happening in his country for a team he played for years, and he's watching this Portuguese guy, no offense to Portuguese people, but he's watching this Portuguese guy come into Nigeria, get paid more money than they would have paid him. And this guy is calling the shots. And he probably knows this guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing, right? But the NFF is calling the shots. So it's frustrating. He has to watch this whole thing go down. And not just him. People like him, Siasia, Amunike, all these guys that have their badges, that have paid their dues, that understand coaching, the Olises, they know what time it is, man. They know that, hey, listen, this guy's just here.
Amunike has openly come out and clamored for the job. He said, put my name in that. I want the Super Eagles job. So that tells you something right there, because you didn't hear that when Gernot Rohr was coach. And as much as I wasn't a big fan of Rohr, I would say one thing: Rohr had brought professionalism to the Super Eagles. Maybe not towards the end, he started losing. I think towards the end, the Nigerian factor won over because he was there too long. At some point, that Nigerian factor, it doesn't matter where you are, it'll grind you at some point.
It's a tough job. It's a tough job. That's a tough job because everyone
in the Guinea-Bissau match was saying that one of the toughest jobs in the world football is Nigerian.
Yes, it's a national team coach. Yeah, because everyone in Nigeria thinks they're a coach. Everyone thinks,
it's really the NFF, man. The NFF, it's consistent. No matter what regime, it's the same BS, incompetence, cronyism, corruption, and just
Hey, put this one on my boy. You may put down for the team. And then it goes like, hey, I got a letter. I got to play this guy.
And then the other part of it too is, Ahmed Musa is somebody that I've always complained about as playing wise. one thing I've never ever complained about with him is his commitment and his patriotism per se. But even him now is starting to wear thin on me from that aspect. Okay,
Time has
so
passed, man.
when asked about why he's still coming, why doesn't he retire? He rebutted, like, why would I retire? I might not still playing. As long as they keep inviting me, I'm going to come. This is national team. I'm going to show up, keep showing up, and commitment, blah, 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 blah. The other part that annoys me is there was this issue with John Noble. You know John Noble, the goalkeeper, used to come as the third string goalie from the, the third string position in goalkeeper is the one position that's set for a home base player because he's not going to play most likely, and that's also an avenue for collecting money. Now, John Noble is saying that he hasn't been paid his AFCON bonus of $25,000 yet.
From the last AFCON. Okay.
He's been complaining about this. Now, Ahmed Musa came out and said, "Oh, it was just an error." Ahmed Musa came out and said there was an error in John Noble's bank account information. That's why he's not been paid.
Wait.
Ahmed Musa,
his teammate knew that the issue.
John Noble said, "Hogwash. They paid me before with this same account. So why is it all of a sudden?" So for me, that was my first look into Ahmed Musa. Like, so somebody wrote an article. It wasn't Solis Chukwu. Somebody else wrote an article about the captaincy of the Super Eagles and how he detailed the type of captains that Nigeria has had all the way back to Stephen Keshi and beyond. And there's always guys that were strong, that stood up to the NFF and stood up for the players. But and he detailed it down to when Amaju Pinnick was there, when Mikel Obi, who was the captain? John Yobo, Nyama. When I had an issue with
I remember that time. Yeah,
one of the guys that was being touted as captain was Victor Moses, but Victor Moses, I don't remember this incident, snubbed a handshake from Amaju Pinnick at one point. And Amaju is very egotistical and very petty. And Amaju now, like, they had to it was like meetings to smoothing things over because he was vowed that Victor Moses would never play for Nigeria again just as a result of that snub. And it's actually one of the reasons why Victor Moses announced his retirement early as a result of all that nonsense. And plus, Moses' commitment was always kind of questionable anyway, but that's another story. So now when they decided to now hand over the captaincy, when they had a chance to hand over captaincy to the next guy, which is why they picked a guy like Ahmed Musa, because they know Musa is not confrontational. All he does is, they say the biggest thing that Musa does, the most times you're going to hear from Musa, is when team gathers and they're bringing in new players, the initiation, that's when Musa is at his best. At that initiation, he's more of a guy that jokes around with the rest of the players and they're happy, go lucky, laughing. When it comes to confrontation, Musa doesn't stand up to anybody. And when you now juxtapose that with the John Noble situation, it makes sense. Which is probably why he keeps getting invited.
Makes sense. Yeah, he's an establishment guy. He probably goes and cracks jokes with people in the front office all the time. They like him, so they're gonna keep bringing him back as long as they can. But they're hurting the team. Your team. Listen. One of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast after watching that game was like, I was like, okay, so this is a team that just failed to qualify for the World Cup. Right? This is a team, and I know some people want to discount that friendly match against Portugal. I don't, because I'm also looking and saying this is a team that hasn't won any friendlies. Right? This is the same team that has all these question marks. And I think the sports journalists in Nigeria have been distracted or something. Because if this was the guys I knew, the sports journalists I knew, they would just go ridiculously crazy about this. And you're watching this game and you're like, what is this?
Quite frankly, it's not that the journalists haven't been talking, but I think, again, like I mentioned earlier, one, it's a low ebb. So there's only been really 3 games that matter. So I think everyone knew we were just fodder for those teams going to the World Cup, and we accepted that. We just accepted that part. I think most people were like, they saved their ire for the lack of qualification for the World Cup. And really, Pesero, honestly, came in at, if you want to talk about coming in at a time when you can fail, that was a perfect time because the team was already low. So it's like no one expected anything from the Eagles anyway. They were already disenchanted by them. But I also think the other thing that it must be mentioned is the political climate in the country right now. I think most people are more concerned about what's going on in politics in Nigeria right now than concerned about the Super Eagles necessarily. I think Super Eagles is more like we don't expect much from them. It's like, quite frankly, I'm starting to realize that the World Cup is what matters to Nigerians, man. The African Cup of Nations is great, but it's not the qualification for that. We expect that we're going to qualify, especially now with 24 teams. So no one is really, even though we know we lost to Guinea-Bissau and looked terrible against Sierra Leone when we beat them, or as if Liberia when we beat them, everyone knows that we're going to qualify. So it's not like, and we're just disenchanted. So I think I've seen a lot of scathing articles, but the other part is juxtaposed with the point that, you got to give the man time. Clearly, the team was already on a low ebb, second round in the African Cup of Nations, didn't qualify for the World Cup. So you're bringing a guy in that's trying to rejig everything. So one thing is time. But hey, time is a commodity that runs out when it comes to international football, man, in Nigeria. So I think the heat is going to start getting turned up on Pesero now.
Keep in mind, right, the next qualification game, I think, is against Sierra Leone.
Liberia. Is it? I keep forgetting which one. Is it Liberia?
Sierra Leone.
Okay. Yeah, it's one of the. Oh boy, it doesn't really matter. I think all we need is a draw next between Sao Tome. So we'll huff and puff against Sierra Leone. We'll probably not get the result that we like. It will probably either draw or it'll be disappointing 1-0 victory, or somehow Sierra Leone will manage to score because we've only had 2 clean sheets in Pesero's era. 2. The first one was against Sao Tome and Principe, and the second one was just this match we just had against Guinea-Bissau. So really, one thing is almost guaranteed: we're going to concede goals, right? And we should not be conceding goals against any of these teams. I'm sorry.
No, we shouldn't. And what's interesting? When you watch the U.S. men's national team, right? I watch them when they play all these games. Maybe they play Honduras or they play El Salvador or whatever. And I watch these games. And sometimes you watch them, and some of these other teams, these CONCACAF teams, they'll run around with the ball a lot more. Sometimes you even see, like, when you watch Costa Rica, you're like, okay, I think Costa Rica has man for man, maybe better players, right? But then the U.S. team will just take their time, defend well, have a little break with Team Weah or something. They'll bring him down. They'll get one set play. It's 1-0. Next thing you know, the game changes. El Salvador now starts really opening up, trying to equalize. Next thing you know, they get another break. Boom, Pulisic, 2-0. The game is over.
Yep.
Right? They didn't expend too much energy. On good field, yes, yes. When they go to San Salvador or they go to Tegucigalpa, it's a different ball game because that stadium, they're on top of them, they're throwing bottles, they're cursing them out.
But the U.S. still manages to get results from
They still get results.
Now they actually have to be acknowledged as they're a regional power. So
100%,
when you're a regional power, it doesn't matter whether you're home or away. 3 points is what you should be expecting from every match that you play.
Correct.
Period. Point blank. Especially in this qualified, like I'm looking at the Nations League or whatever they're playing, and
right now
the USA is playing against Curacao or whoever they played against. I'm like, and they beat them like 7-1.
It's Curacao. Yeah. They I mean,
Argentina haven't played Curacao. I think Messi scored a hat trick. I'm like, what's the benefit of playing this?
It's just to keep the team sharp, like you said. The friendlies, right?
Like, do you think that Sao Tome and Principe match kept the Super Eagles sharp?
No. But that's what I'm saying. Like it's like you said, it's a glorified friendly, right? So in that kind of game, and Pesero is probably doing this, looking to see, okay, who's going to be my, number 111 that I have established.
Well, look, there's no number. You get nothing out of that match. Emmanuel Dennis played that match. Scored. I don't know if Awoni wasn't invited, but Muffy played, scored. Osimhen scored 4 goals. Osimhen, in fact, when I look back on it, the fact that he only scored 4 even shows how he's underperforming in the Super Eagles uniform. He should have scored like 6 or 7 in that. You think Erling Haaland, he'll score 10 goals against South. All 10 would have been from Erling Haaland, and he'll dash a 3 or 4. It would have been 14-0. It's just one other. I don't want to leave this guy out because we don't have a goalkeeper either, man. Zohar guy's a disaster.
Goodness, did you see the blunder he had in that second game?
It's a disaster, man. At some point, it's like, this is who you are. You're not going to get better. He's not. He had that game against Manchester United last year that everyone, okay, maybe this is the moment where he turns it around. But his league form has been horrible. He's been giving up. I think there was a point where he gave up like 20 goals in like 5 games, something like that. He doesn't play. He's on the bench. That's another one. Doesn't play. We have a goalkeeper that plays, by the way. Granted, may not be the favorite. He plays in Israel. Dele. He plays week in, week out, but yet we keep bringing Francis Zohar back as a starter. He's on the bench for Omonia Nicosia in Cyprus. So
I know that.
What's the difference in the Cypriot league and the Israeli league? I'm sorry.
The Israeli league is even better because
probably. I met a guy from Israel. And the guy, once I said Nigeria, he was happy. He was talking about Enyama, Ejide. He rates Enyama. He thinks Enyama is one of the best goalkeepers ever. I was so surprised to just hear that, and I just let him talk. Enyama actually got voted as Africa's all-time best goalkeeper by one of these.
I saw that. Yeah.
IFAB was the one.
Vincent Enyama was special. Make no mistake about that, man. That guy was an icon. And that game against Argentina, if anything, showed it at the highest level. Mm-hmm. He single-handedly kept us in that game.
I think I only stopped Messi scoring.
Man. And you got to realize Vincent Enyama was something special. Like, people forget how good he was.
I think it's appreciated enough.
They forget how good.
We're suffering from the JJ Okocha effect. Like, we haven't had a guy to replace JJ Okocha since he left, and I will never will, because JJ Okocha, there's no JJ Okocha in the world. There's only like a few players that are like him worldwide, ever in the history of the game. And right now we're suffering from that same effect with Enyama, which unfortunately is a position that we should be able to replace. But it's 2 things. We got unfortunate. Enyama left, and then Carl Ikeme got that cancer because he stepped in. And he was,
I remember that. Yeah. Do you know how he's doing now?
He recovered, and I think they even gave him a job. He's a goalkeeper coach somewhere. He obviously is professional. He was 32 by the time he joined us, but that's not a big deal because goalkeepers can play well into their late.
What happened to Maduka?
Okoye doesn't play for ball. He's not playing. His confidence is shot ever since the Cup of Nations when he gave up that goal against Tunisia, that long-range shot, and Nigerians abused him. He's talking about he doesn't want to play for Nigeria anymore. He'll take a break. So, whatever. He's not good enough right now. He's not playing. So I don't think we're missing him. He certainly looked like he was something that could be developed because he was a young kid, but he made a blunder when he left a team. I met some guys from Feyenoord, right, when he was playing at. And they were like, why did he leave us? Like, he could be playing. They loved him. They said he was a good goalkeeper. He could have been playing and getting better. When you're that age, you need to be playing. That's one thing about certain positions. Defenders, goalkeepers have to be playing.
It's the money in the game, man. Someone came and told him, hey, I could get you this deal. There's going to be money involved, and he took it. That's all that is.
Yeah, Nigerian players – and usually the ones that are born in Nigeria make these terrible decisions in club destinations. Kelechi Iheanacho, somebody comes to mind. But I was very surprised that somebody of his ilk, with the kind of advisors he has, would have done what he did to go. You were going from a team. Same with some will say Taiwo Awoniyi or even Paul Onuachu. But Onuachu, I understand. He was going to England from Belgium, and he maxed out his time in Belgium. But anyway, you're going from a club that was possibly going to be in Europe. And was it Feyenoord? Who was he playing for? It was a team in Feyenoord in the same city, the other team. Anyway, the Dutch league, where you were going to be guaranteed. You were the starter. You saved them from relegation, so you're kind of a hero. But he said, "Let me go to a Premier League team that's fighting relegation, that has a established number one."
And that's the thing. People want to go to. I 100% get why you want to go to the Premier League. I'm not knocking it, but I think you also need to take a look at things. If it's a Premier League team that's a lower level team, and you could play for a higher level team in another country, or you end up playing for a higher level team in another country that goes to Champions League. Why would you go to the lower level EPL team? And you see this a lot of times where guys are like, "Oh, I'll just go to the EPL team." Okay, I get why you want to play in England, which, by the way, depending on which European country you're in, taxes in England are savage. But I get why you want to play there. But be picky about the teams you join. Sometimes I understand if you're playing for a crappy team somewhere and you're an international and they just want to bring you in, by all means go. But if you have the opportunity to grow in Italy or Holland, why are you going to run to England to go play for a team?
I want to come to mind the thing with Tyrone. I mean, in hindsight, it's 2020.
The Norwich, yeah. Nottingham.
Nottingham Forest. Yeah. I mean, like they're hanging in there. They're in the fight. I mean, there's about 6-7 teams, actually 9 teams in the relegation battle in England, and they're one of them, but at least they're not in the zone, and they climbed out of it. But the thing is, Union Berlin, the team he came from, are at the top of the Bundesliga. Until recently, we're doing well in the Europa League. So although he's been injured, but he's set to come back from injury. He's healthy now, supposedly, so we should see him. Without him,
it's the lure of the EPL. It's glitz, it's glamour. It's most watched. When we play the Manchester United and the Manchester Cities and those guys, you're gonna have people all over the world knowing who you are. It's also all that stuff. They get sold on it, and like your brand will grow, your value will grow, and but all those promises are based under the premise that you're going to be playing week in, week out, which is not guaranteed.
Not
at all. Yes, not at all. So yes, all those things can happen, but if you're playing consistently, it happens. If you're not playing consistently, it doesn't happen. And if it doesn't happen,
is that somebody actually was doing a rundown and saying what they've noticed is that Nigerian players that go to the EPL sit on the bench for the most part.
A lot of them do, yeah.
When they which means it's better for you to actually go play football somewhere else. But when they come to England, they sit on and they're saying a lot of these other leagues. In fact, they're saying usually when a Nigerian player is playing these other leagues, they get playing time. They look pretty good. They get better. Super Eagles get better for it. But when we now have majority of our squad in England, they turn our players into robots. They don't allow them to express themselves. So the argument was like somebody was trying to say Victor Osimhen shouldn't go to England. I think that's rubbish because I think his position is actually where it's best for you to go to England, the striker.
The forward, yeah.
They will polish the game. That nonsense offside rubbish that he keeps doing. No English coach will stand for that nonsense. You're well drilled into when to make runs.
My only concern for him is, is he going to be given the same rope or space to be successful? Yeah, that's my concern.
I would say this: he's that kind of a talent that is there. It's undeniable. It's like he is entering. If he hasn't entered world, I don't think he's quite world class yet, but he's on that verge of being world class. And there's only so many players like that. But I would tell you right now, there's this guy from Norway. Is it Norway? One of the Scandinavian countries that plays with Højlund. Højlund, that's his name. Plays with Ademola Lookman. That guy's coming sooner, and the other guy, Vlahovic, teams will tell you those guys prefer to Victor Osimhen. Right? The thing about Osimhen, he's more athletic than them, jumps higher. But when it comes to technicality, Vlahovic, and then you look at internationally.
Where's Vlahovic from?
Vlahovic is from Serbia. He played in the
Those
World
guys,
Cup. He
man.
scored.
Yeah,
Um,
those
the
guys
thing
are
about
something.
those guys, they
Yeah,
score on the national break. It doesn't matter who that they score. They
yeah,
play on better field. So
they do. No, but Victor, we'll see how it plays out, man. I really want him to make the right decision. Obviously, I can understand it. If a United comes for you, that's going to be
you
hard to
go,
pass up,
you
man.
go, you go.
And you get a chance to compete at the highest level. With just getting the starting job alone is going to require a lot of effort, right? And I think that's what he needs. Like, you need that challenge, and
No, he needs
for him,
to be in the very highest level. The English Premier League is the
hundred
highest level.
percent, 100%.
So I mean, his talent dictates that that's where he needs to be, without a doubt.
Yeah,
Although there
yeah.
is talk that PSG is making a big push, but don't go to PSG. You don't challenge yourself at PSG. I don't think so. It's not a challenge. It's a one-horse league, And PSG, they're too unpredictable. Their approach is scattergun.
But you know what? You know what though? Hey, that team is attractive, the best in the world.
Yeah, but
And
the results are not there.
Yeah, the money talks.
Yeah, results are not there, and you're always going to be second fiddle to Mbappe, no matter what. You always be second fiddle. You know what I'm saying? You be the one you're doing. The team is around, even with Messi there. Mbappe is the man, so I should say enough, right? And then Neymar will probably be offloaded. I think this is probably his last season in Paris.
I wonder where he'll go.
Neymar's time as an elite player of the elite is done.
Yeah,
he's still good, but he's no longer of the elite.
Yeah, he's no longer. He's just. If a team like Real were going to go for him, that would be a good idea.
No, Real's not going to go for him. His damage
Yeah.
They already had a situation with what's his name from Chelsea,
Hazard.
I'm not going to get a player like that. Real Madrid is starting to be smart. They're getting young players. In fact, that's where I say Victor Osimhen, to me, is where he should go. Go to Real Madrid if they want you.
But they're not in the market for him, though. I don't think so. Are they?
They need a center forward.
They need one, but are they? We don't know who's bidding. I think that's another.
Look, Victor Osimhen has entered the conversation of the only thing why I would say they may not really want to go for him because they're eyeing Haaland. Haaland is going to be in Real Madrid. That one is almost like a foregone conclusion. He's actually a profile Madrid player.
And here's the thing. Here's the thing about the Galacticos. They like to sell that jersey in Asia. And they know that Haaland jersey in places like Asia is going to be a killer. It's just
anyway.
Was that?
I'll take Haaland over Osimhen for Real Madrid. You got guys like Vinicius feeding you balls and Camavinga picking you in. Well, I know, of course, by the time Haaland gets there, Modric is not going to be there anymore. The new guys. Ooh. You have guys that do all the running for you. All you could be doing is just tapping balls in, and they actually play ball on like
you can't spend anything better.
Him and Osimhen will be perfect for Real Madrid, but I think Osimhen is more involved in the build-up. So that maybe a team like Madrid would be like, oh, just stay in the box, stay there. Like that's what they want this. And Benzema comes in and works, but really Benzema is special, right? Benzema is special. They have everybody else doing all the platform work. Haaland will be scoring tap-ins in Madrid.
Haaland would be. Listen, if I'm his agent, I'm brokering that deal tomorrow. Like I'm finding a way to make that deal happen. First of all, the money involved in it to get him, and then when he gets there, you and I know he's just going to light Europe on fire. It'll be ridiculous.
Yeah, so there's only so many teams that really. I mean, first of all, look at the price tag that De Laurentiis is just putting on Osimhen. Is every time you hear the money go up. At first it was 100 million, now it's 120, now it's 150. So it's posturing, obviously, but it's not going to take anything less than 120. So who can afford that 120? Man United, Chelsea, maybe Arsenal, and then the Real Madrid, PSG, And really, that's it. Maybe Bayern, but Bayern, I haven't heard much that they want to get him. So,
and he's worth every penny, and I don't blame Napoli. This kind of guy, you cash out, man. You
well, he
cash.
signed for 2025, so
Yeah, man.
not move him at all. They're not obligated to do that.
Yeah, my man.
Ngwanu, like
It's a
Igbo brothers
pleasure.
say,
One them, one them. You have to say it right.
Ngwanu.
No,
No,
no.
that's it. We're
No,
ready.
man.
Time.
Oh, always a pleasure, man. We gotta do something again in a week. Get you back on, talk about some other stuff. There's some topics I have outlined, but I'll let you know for sure, man. But yeah,
No, definitely.
always a pleasure. Listen, I have to come to San Jose, bro.
Well, you've been saying it for years. I'll believe it when I see it.
I keep bullshitting, man. I need to come there, man. They have like really good Mexican food, right?
Not even going to answer you on that one.
Yeah.
If that's your reason for coming, then okay, whatever.
No. I gotta go out there, though. No, I gotta go out there. We'll make it happen, bro. We'll make it happen.
Everything is here.
All the best.
All right, bro. Well, take care, man. Have a good one.
Take care. You too.